Welcome to History at Home, bringing the museum to you. I'm Sarah Byers. Colorful, eye-pleasing textiles were a welcome addition to the homes of early Niagara. Let's look at a small selection of quilts from the collection of the City of Niagara Falls museums, along with some mixed and matched information on the quilts and their makers. This double-sized log cabin design quilt was created by Amelia Jane Jamieson Dell of Crowland Township, today bordering Niagara Falls and Welland. The date is unknown. Popular in the 1860s, the log cabin pattern resembles logs surrounding a hearth. Typically, the center square was red. Requiring an abundance of fabric, skill, and time to piece together, one variation is so robust that it does not require backing. The heavily layered look, obvious in this example, is said to have been influenced by designs found on the wrappings of Egyptian mummies displayed at the British Museum in the early 1800s. At this time, the maker of this variable star design quilt is known to us only as Mrs. William Wallace, possibly Mary. Mrs. Wallace pieced together the blocks in 1895. The blocks were passed to daughter Lucinda, who gave them to neighbor Ada Somerville Plyley in 1924. Ada became a curator at Willoughby Historical Museum and brought the pieces to the museum, where the Willoughby Historical Society completed the quilt. The story of the quilt that took 74 years to complete was covered in the newspaper. This schoolhouse motif is reminiscent of the building in which the Willoughby Historical Museum resides, simply referred to as School Section No. 2 Willoughby. Quilt blocks from Doris Fisher were stitched together by the Willoughby Historical Society and given to the museum in 1978. This quilt design is called Wild Goose Chase. The quilt came from the home of Herman Hexamer in Chippewa and was passed through the family before donation to the museum. The creator of the patchwork is unknown. The Hexamer family farmed on the south side of Baker Road, between Sodom Road and the QEW Highway. This silk patchwork quilt is a bit of a mystery. It arrived to the museum with a red silk ribbon, Stamford Exhibition 1903, first premium, and a ribbon for the centenary of the Battle of Lundy's Lane, both attached. The quilt size may indicate that it was made for display or for a child's crib. A second such quilt was very recently donated. The quilts were once owned by Miss Laura Hyatt, MBE. However, the maker is unknown. Olive Wilson created 8 quilts for sale around 1845, before her marriage. Brightly colored applique tulips and roses may indicate a Germanic style. A granddaughter wrote about Olive. A man at the South End told me my grandmother was well known in Drummondville, as she was quite a horsewoman and a good financier, as she carried mortgages there. I believe Cyanamid owned some of their property on Beechwoods Road. There were 3 or 4 farms. Olive passed away in 1904 at the age of 76 in Stamford Township. She rests at Drummond Hill Cemetery. This star pattern quilt is pieced together using recycled men's neckties with a sateen backing. Although we don't know who made the quilt or when, we do know that it is from the estate of Gillian Dell. It's said that Gillian lived to be at least 104 years old. Many items from her family are held in the museum's artifact collections. At age 7, Martha Jane Crawford pieced together 2,034 squares of fabric to create this patchwork quilt. A news clipping kept neatly inside a book called Stella's Nosegay tells the story of the quilt. Lonsborough. Martha Jane, daughter of Mr. E. Crawford, has completed a quilt with 2,034 patches, all put together by herself. Martha Jane has worked out a very creditable monument to her name. She moved to Niagara Falls and worked as a packer in a plating factory before marrying Abram S. Kunkel. Thank you for joining this History at Home.